Welcome, income hackers. This is your host, Ryan G. Wright. This podcast is for individuals and families who are interested in fast-tracking their financial success. You'll hear experts discussing topics like generating a residual cash flow, building wealth through real estate, financial literacy, creating a family legacy, and overcoming your fears. If you get value out of this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It's a big help to me. All right, income hackers, we've got a very special episode for you today. I've got a special guest. Scott Royal Smith is a real estate investor and asset protection attorney. Now, get this, guys. He's a real estate investor and an asset protection attorney, right? So that's always nice to have somebody that's in the trenches that's helping you out. Scott became an entrepreneur while still in law school, purchasing and running an auto mechanic shop to pay his way through school. After graduation, Scott began his law career as a high-stakes corporate litigator. He spent the last 10 years of his career analyzing real estate investments and asset protection. Today, Scott is the founder and CEO of Royal Legal Solutions, a firm he built to offer tax, business, and legal strategies to clients all over the United States and Canada. Welcome to the program, Scott. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, Ryan. Great to dive in today. Appreciate being on here.
So I am so excited to hear about your real estate investing and your asset protection. Let's just jump into this. Like, when did you start becoming a real estate investor, and why asset protection? Why is that important to people?
Yeah, well, I started while I was in law school. I bought a transmission and auto repair shop and ran the business and then flipped the building. We bought it for like the back taxes for like $10,000. And then me and my partner were able to pay off our law school debts from that one deal. And that's why I fell in love with it. So
you bought the building with the mechanic shop then?
That's right. Yeah.
Wow.
So the mechanic shop covered all of our expenses day to day through law school, and then flipping the building, rehabbing and flipping the building paid off all of our debts.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And that's
hustle right there. That's income hacking at its best. That's the income hacker. That's why he's here, guys.
That's it. And at my heart, I'm an entrepreneur, right? And so but at the time I didn't know it because I was like, great, I'm going to go get this law job. And what I did is I was suing insurance companies because insurance companies are profit-seeking corporations, right? And I didn't know, and before I started doing that their role is actually to collect premiums and deny coverage. That's the way they make money, right? Now, they're very important to our business model. So I'm not saying don't have insurance. I'm just saying like there's limitations to what we should understand, like what their role is for us as real estate investors, that they're not just blanket catch-alls. And that's why asset protection is so important. And that particular lesson came to me through a lesson I didn't have to learn personally. Right? It came through me from a friend of mine who got sued and lost over $3 million from a single transaction. And he was very well insured, but he did the same thing a lot of real estate investors do, which is says, well, I don't want to do all of this asset protection stuff. So I'm just going to have an umbrella insurance policy and I'm going to call it good. But what they didn't know, and what he didn't know, was that insurance only protects you from negligence or simple accidents. If there's ever an allegation of fraud or a breach of contract, or somebody gets grievously injured on the property such that it's gross negligence, and the insurance company is the one that gets to decide that, not you, then the coverage doesn't exist. They exclude it from the coverage, and you're left having to fight all of your own battles on your own and responsible for it. And that's what happened to him, and that's how he lost over $3 million. And all he would have had to do to not lose $3 million is establish even a single LLC. Even though it's the most basic form of protection, that's all he would have had to do. And of course, he had the money, right? But what he didn't know was the piece that now I educate on, and anybody listening here today is going to get educated on, which is why is it important? What are the simple things you can do? And even more importantly, what's the appropriate thing to do now, right? And what are the things you need to do as you grow, right? And so I'm really excited to share with that here today. That's what we educate on at Royal Legal Solutions, is trying to give away all the information we can for free. And so that way when we partner with people, we're just building, but everybody gets all the info for free.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and Scott's got ebooks, he's got videos, he's got everything out there at rlspod.com/ IH for income hackers. So you can check that out and get some of this stuff that Scott's talking about. So let's break this down a little bit. Let's say we've got people listening to the podcast that are just getting going. So I want to talk a little bit about to those guys. And then we've got some people that have maybe done a few deals and are looking to scale. I think they're going to have some different needs as we talk about some asset protection. Let's kind of start with the new guy. What are some things to be aware of? And probably before we even jump into that, the story you told reminds me, I was working with a builder when I was early on as a real estate agent. And I remember we're in Salt Lake City, so there's snow and ice and that type of stuff. And there was a kid that hit an icicle and it came down and poked him in the eye, and he lost his eye, which is super sad, but it was on this guy's property. And so he was in this litigation and all this mess and all this garbage about how did this kid get hit in the eye? And he was trying to prove in court that the only way he got hit in the eye is that the kid was looking up at the icicle, you know? And so these things to help us avoid dealing with these situations or having us protected if these situations come up, just as that has stuck in my mind forever when I think about asset protection and making sure that he didn't lose everything as part of that. So I'm excited to hear more what you got to say here, Scott, on getting people started.
Right. So, the first thing I want to benchmark is before everybody who's more sophisticated like tunes out to be like, oh, cool, we're about to jump into just a newbie section, and I'm advanced. I'm too advanced to hear this newbie talk into it. I'm gonna tell you right now is that I'm gonna walk you guys through, everybody here. I'm gonna walk you through the way to think through what's going to be necessary for you. I'm not just going to be like handing out blanket recommendations. So stay into this episode and stay with us here, because this is going to be really valuable for everybody to understand how to evaluate risks and the different types of risks that are there.
Love it.
Through the show. Okay. Because everything that we build at Royal Legal Solutions, I've thought about this from thinking about it from like the ground up, like a castle that has bricks, and you layer on bricks. And you layer on bricks as a real estate investor grows. That way, as they grow, like Royal Legal Solutions grows, and we all grow together. Like, that's the concept. So the idea is that no matter where you're starting at or where you're at, if you build in the right way, you're never going to have to tear things down and rebuild them again. Because if you ever have to do that, it's horrible. It's expensive. It's super time consuming. Your tax people go crazy on you because they're like, I don't know when you're going to do all this stuff or whatever. So it's really important to do things right. And if you haven't done anything yet, right, and you hold everything in your personal name, perfect. Because then we can do everything right from the ground up and not have to clean anything up. If you already have things in place right now, perfect. We're experts at how to clean things up because we've been doing it for the last 7 years for over 2,000 clients in all 50 states and every type of asset class, right? So wherever you're at in your life, this conversation is going to be pertinent to you, and it's going to give you some really deep look into how to think through what's going to be appropriate for you. And I'm going to help you think through that. So let's just talk about number one. Like, what's the most basic person, right? The most basic person that comes in is somebody who has no assets at all, actually, but is looking to do stuff, looking to engage in business. Now, if you're not looking to engage in business and you have a horrible credit score and you have no assets, then don't spend money with attorneys, right? Don't do it. It doesn't make any sense. You're just lighting money on fire to go help fund that attorney's boat payment. That's not going to help you, right? What you got to think through is like, great, well, but what are the things that are going to be useful for me? It's going to be, if you have no assets and you're looking to get into the business, right? Then the first thing you want to do is establish an LLC. And that LLC, as we call it, is an operating LLC. And it will actually own no assets. But the operating LLC is where you do all of your business. And the reason that you do all of your business through the operating LLC is because if anything goes wrong in your business and you do it in your personal name, now the lawsuit is against you personally. And when it's against you personally, that hurts your credit score, which is your access to capital. And you need that credit score to get the access to capital to get to the stage 2, which is starting to acquire assets. Now, all you have to do is establish an LLC, have the LLC sign anything that is coming up across your plate on behalf of the LLC as a manager of that LLC, which is just like, hey, Scott Smith, manager of XYZ LLC. It's super simple to do. And the same thing is like in the signature blocks of your emails. Same thing. That's how you identify that you're not acting as Ryan. You're acting as Ryan, an agent or a manager of this LLC, and therefore all of the risk is pushed onto the LLC. And as long as you do that and establish your LLC in a state that has strong protections in place, then you're going to be fine, right? And that's going to be great. You're going to protect your personal credit score and then be able to be able to operate in a way that if something bad happens and you have a lawsuit that gets filed, right, in connection to something that you said or did, right, your worst case scenario is you wind down that LLC and start up a new one. But your credit score and your personal assets stay in place. And if they try to sue you personally, you can get it dismissed, get yourself dismissed from the lawsuit. You can say, nah, this wasn't me. That was my LLC. And my LLC is the one that did it. And it will hold up if formed correctly and operated correctly, which is why that we advise using us, right? Because, or if you don't use us, use another attorney, somebody else that's going to help advise you, not just on the formation stage, but the active operation of that LLC, at least on a quarterly basis, to ensure that you're doing things correctly, that you have a proper accounting in place, that you're signing the documentation correctly, etc.
That makes a lot of sense. What about, I get asked this and I'll be interested in your perspective on it. Let's say I buy a house, fix the house up, sell it, make a little profit, but then somebody comes back. Let's say it's like a worst case scenario that, like, I don't know, something weird was found on the property. Somebody gets sick and they sue. What would happen if somebody had an LLC or somebody didn't have an LLC in that type of a scenario as far as asset protection?
Yeah, so if you had all of the assets in your personal name and you're selling assets in and out of the LLC, the question then becomes well, what are they going to sue for? Well, likely they're going to sue whoever sold them the asset. So if you personally, Ryan, sold them the asset, now they come back and sue Ryan for everything that Ryan owns. And that's the position most real estate investors are in, is that now their entire net worth is put at risk. Everything they have in stocks, their bank accounts, all of their real estate assets, everything now becomes at risk.
Income if they have a job, income from the job.
Yeah, all kinds of issues come into play that likely can force people into very expensive bankruptcies that delay their timeline to be able to achieve financial freedom, which can be up to 7 years to be able to rebuild your credit and be able to start operating a business again, depending upon a number of factors. But it's catastrophic loss. So how does that really play out? It really plays out that, Ryan, you just end up having to pay him off because you're in such an exposed position. You can't afford the downside risk. So you're forced into having to pay him off, like getting extorted, right? Which is basically, that's what it is. It's legal extortion. And that's what the litigation game is actually all about. From my experience, litigation, that's my view. So the way that you have to do that is you have to protect yourself and how can you get leverage back to yourself, right? The way you get leverage is, one, remove yourself personally from the transaction. One way is doing that is to the operating company, because that's all the communications you would make. And number two is an asset holding company, which is either a single series LLC, which is infinitely expandable at no additional cost. It's like being able to create additional LLCs on your desktop for free, and you can use it in all 50 states. There's a few states that you'd want to form it in, either Delaware, Texas, Nevada, or Wyoming, but you can use it in all 50 states due to the full faith and credit clause of the United States Constitution. Just like you use any other LLCs, maybe formed in Delaware and used somewhere else, same thing is applicable to the series LLC. If you're in California, you'll want to use a Delaware statutory trust so you can avoid the $800 a year in franchise taxes and still have the same compartmentalization. And if you're in a smaller scale, like maybe you only have like one property or two properties, you might just want to use individual LLCs to hold those properties, because maybe you don't have an intention of scaling. You don't need an entity structure that can scale and keep things streamlined for you. And so you use one or more LLCs. And when you use those LLCs correctly, that's how it prevents somebody from being able to come back after you because you didn't sell them the asset anymore. It was that individual LLC that sold them the asset. So therefore, the lawsuit can't go back against you, because any representations you made were through the operating company, and it can't come back to you as the property owner because the LLC owned the property and sold them the property. So Ryan actually was never involved in the transaction, and the only person that can sue, right, doesn't own anything anymore because that LLC doesn't own any assets anymore after it sold that one asset. And the other LLC, that's the operating company, had never owned any assets. So there's nothing there to collect. And that's how you get the leverage back to your side. That's because when there's nothing there for them to come after, now the pot of gold that they're trying to come after just got shrunk down. And guess what? If there's not money to be made in suing you, they're not going to go after you, right? If it looks like you qualify for food stamps on paper or there's no money there, they ain't coming after you, because it's all about that attorney trying to get paid. And if he doesn't think he's going to get paid, then he ain't doing nothing with it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. How often before an attorney takes a case or before he's working on that, is he going to say, is there money in this or not? I mean, is that one of the first things
100%.
they're going to do?
It's the first consideration. So the very first thing that we do on the asset protection and lawsuit prevention side of things, and the most effective first line of defense that you have from litigation, is actually hiding the assets and hiding your ownership of any of these entities. So that way it looks like, if I will say, great, I think I might want to go after Ryan. What does Ryan own? And it's like, great, well, let me search the Secretary of State records to find out what entities he owns. Where's he listed as creator, manager, or member of any LLCs? Well, let me look at the using services like datatree.com. I can pull up and search for Ryan's name on any properties that are listed in connection to his name, right, into it, right? So that's like, good, here's an asset list. I think I can get after all of these assets. That takes under 60 seconds to be able to pull together. And we do that as a free risk analysis for anybody coming in to Royal Legal Solutions to say, great, do you want to see how easy this is? Like, we can do it for you live over the phone for us to find what assets you own into it, right? Then if there's no assets that come up, then lawsuits probably stopped, like right there, because how are we all going to get paid? Why are we going to go spend all this money on it? No, ain't nobody going to make money out of doing this. So we're not going to do it anymore, right? And that's how you can stop a lot of the lawsuits, just right there. And it's from the way that you do that is using trusts, types of revocable grantor trusts that create anonymity, like land trusts and agent trusts. They don't add any complexity into your bookkeeping, into your accounting, into your taxes or anything. They're just merely there on the creation and to be able to produce the actual protection that we're looking for. And I just want to just underline for everybody here that everything that I've built and designed inside of Royal Legal Solutions is specifically designed to have nothing change in your life, right? Like, your taxes shouldn't change, the way that you have to, the way your banking has to go. Like, you're talking very minimal change, like no extra time goes into each year. There's no additional filings or expenses that typically have to happen with it. It's to make everything super easy and streamlined. So that way that the average investor has all of the tools and protections that are otherwise used just by rich people, but it's at a level that they can afford and the level that they can manage.
Makes a lot of sense. And I just want to highlight one thing. Like, this isn't about how to get out of a responsibility if you were supposed to take care of it, right? This is protecting yourself from people that are coming after you because they see
lawsuits.
opportunity. Frivolous lawsuits.
Yes,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's the frivolous lawsuits. Listen, we all have the opportunity at any time to give people money. Like, if I think I did something wrong and I believe that and I owe it to that person, regardless of what the law says, I'm going to give them the money.
Yeah.
Right. Or I'm going to take care of them. Right. The thing I don't want to do is ever be in a position where somebody has leverage over me that's forcing me to do something that I don't think is right. Right. So in my view, we should always have the maximum legal protections because we always have the ability to do the right thing without having the opportunity to get screwed by a frivolous lawsuit or something. Because guess what? Everybody out there lies. Everybody thinks, hey, I'll be honest and honesty is going to save me. It's not true. The reason it's not true is because the person that just got hurt and had the injury to them, they get up on the stand and they just lie and lie and lie. They'll lie about anything they possibly can that's going to get them paid out because that's what they feel like they have to do. And I'm saying let's remove that ability to have other people be able to hurt us in some way that's not going to be appropriate.
Yeah. This gives you the protection that you need when those crazy things come up. And that's the thing. I see a lot of people. I remember being in a deposition where there was a guy across from the table and he was lying. And we had evidence to show that. And I'm like, I can't stand this. Like, this is driving me crazy. He bought a brand new car with money that was supposed to go into a property and we could prove it, and I'm like, are you seriously saying this right now? And then we had to unfold everything. But in the end, we ended up not getting our money because he filed bankruptcy and all that garbage, but these things happen. And if they haven't happened to you yet, you haven't been in the game long enough because these crazy things happen, these horror stories happen, and being protected and setting up the foundation right. Let's talk about this. What about financing? If you're trying to get loans, how does financing work on some of these things? If I've got LLCs and I've got a lender that wants me to sign personally, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the structure that we're typically using is all the financing concerns relate to the structure, right? So what you find is that lenders typically want to finance things either inside of somebody's personal name or some single purpose LLC. There's like the two avenues that most lenders will go through because that's the simple, most repeatable type of underwriting that happens, right? Note that with a lender having a perfected and secured lien, which is typically what happens in real estate, which is I give you money, I file a lien, that lien is secured by the property and it's registered, right? That's called a perfected and secured lien in the legal world, right? Those liens are extremely strong. Those liens are incredibly strong, and regardless of what happens with the property, until there's a discharge of that lien, the lien runs with the property, and default of that lien means foreclosure of the property is available to whoever lent the money, right? So I just want to point that out first as just a top of mind consideration because I'm going to talk to you guys about a little bit of a nuanced way to be able to look at how do we do financing and how it can work inside of asset protection.
Introducing the Investor's Edge real estate investing software for fix and flip pros. Target the most profitable deals in your area with ease and start capitalizing on opportunities you didn't even know existed. This simple-to-use software will make it easy to find properties for your flip and fix business, so you can focus on what you do best. Call 801-921-8751 after this podcast to get set up on a free trial.
Let's talk structure. Number one structure everybody should be using outside of California should be a series LLC structure for all of your 1 to 4 unit properties. The reason why is because you can establish it in Delaware, Texas, Nevada, Wyoming, and then you can use it in any other state, right? What makes a series LLC amazing is that you can create what are called child series underneath this parent that's created. So it's one entity with one bank account, one set of accounting books that you have to manage, but it can create an infinite number of these child series that act just like LLCs, but they're free to create and it costs nothing to maintain. So then you're able to create an infinite number of LLCs on your desktop. Why is that cool? Because now you can compartmentalize every single asset underneath its own child series for free, which would otherwise cost you a bundle underneath the LLCs, plus having to do all of the extra bookkeeping and yearly maintenance associated with individual LLCs. Wipe that off the table. You don't have to do any of that with the series LLC. And now if there's a lawsuit against one property, they can't go after any of the other properties. If you sell an asset out of that child series, like one of my clients did, you don't get a phone call 2 months later asking about some plumbing that got replaced and $75,000 in damages from a water leak and have somebody thinking that they're going to sue you. Why? Because it was this child series of the series LLC that sold them the asset, and there's no assets left into that. So when they try to file that lawsuit, they're going against an entity that doesn't have anything in it for them to pursue. So you get these high levels of protection. Now, what you can also do with the series LLC is combine it with land trusts. You can have trusts that both own the property on the deed record and trusts that own the entity structure. So if you just say like, great, we want anonymity in place here. So great, and we want anonymity with the ownership of that property. Great. What you'll do then is hold the property inside of the 123 Main Street Trust or whatever the address of the property is, trust. That's how land trusts are typically titled, street address trust. That land trust for property A is then owned by Child Series A, and Child Series A is in turn owned by the parent. So there's just 3 quick levels here, right? So the land trust owns the property on title, 123 Main Street Trust. So who owns the 123 Main Street Trust? Well, the internal documents of the trust say that it's actually this child series of the series LLC. None of those documents are filed anywhere, so nobody can find out any information about it. All they know is that these documents were created by an attorney. And if they ask the attorney says, attorney-client privilege, can't give you any information about any of it. So the levels of anonymity here are super strong as it comes into it. Now, when you want to do the financing or any deals that you need to do, right? First of all, what you can do is, let's say you need to prove these assets to a bank to say, hey, this is my balance sheet, right? So you go to, great, disclose it to the bank. We don't mind. That's not public information, right? That's just to the bank. So tell the bank, produce documents to the bank. You can show them anything. What we're worried about is stuff that's public that other attorneys are going to find to know they should sue you. So we're trying to just take the target off the back of the lawsuit. That's the kind of anonymity we're trying to achieve here with it. And what like maybe your neighbor down the street might be able to find out about you, which makes me really uncomfortable, which is why I hide everything in it too, because it just makes me weird for people to know my net worth.
Yeah.
But when you're doing the financing, what you do is you close on the property inside of using your conforming loan, like the 1 to 4 unit, underneath the underwriting requirements. That's easy for whoever is going to be giving you the money. So for most people, this is how you would do this for like a conforming loan. For your first 10, close on it your personal name, then deed it into the land trust after the fact. Because it's a transfer to a trust, The due on sale clause cannot be implicated based upon the St. Germain Act with it. So you're protected legally from any type of foreclosure there. I've had clients that have worried about it and said, well, what if you're wrong, Scott? You know, so, well, if I'm wrong on that, then they're not going to foreclose because you're paying on the note. And no financing institutions don't foreclose on things while there's payment because they're making money. Why would they disrupt the financial flow of money here? It says, well, what if they still try to foreclose on me, even regardless of all that? I say, great. All you have to do is you deed the property back to how you held it before. Now you've cured the breach and the financing, the breach of the contract, and now the foreclosure stops with it. So no way can you get hurt by taking these measures to it. And that anybody that's giving you money into it, you just need to get through the financing stage with whoever you're working with and then move the asset over the fact. The reality of the situation is everybody's still making money off of this deal and everybody's still protected because the lender still has a secured perfected lien against the piece of real estate. And then there's also all of the protections that come into you that says they can't really do anything. They shouldn't do anything and they really can't do anything. And the extent that they wanted to do something, we can always revert back to make sure that you're not injured.
That makes a lot of sense. What about like with the series LLC or the land trust, if you're trying to close with a title company and they want some documentation on it or you're selling it and they're like, nothing's recorded. And what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so these are issues that we've had to hammer out like over the last 7 years, right? It's like, what are the streamlined processes to do that? And what you do is, like, let's say you own the property inside of like the series LLC and land trust, and then you say, great, I want to sell it out of the land trust directly to the third party, whoever it be. One is that you could transfer the asset back to your personal name and then just sell it out of your personal name to the third party, which is less than ideal from a protection standpoint, but it just totally removes any type of issue off the table because title is really only looking at is a title owner now valid for the next one, right? And so, like, great. If you want to remove title issues totally off the table, that's what you do. Otherwise, what you do is you just have it's a one-page document called a certification of trust, and in there it spells out, you know, here's how this transaction here's the trust document, and basically here's how the trust document reads, and here's why the client is able to execute this transaction using the trust. So it's a simple one-page form document that we fill out, sign it, give it to the title company along with the trust documentation and any other documentation they ask for. So that way they can execute the sale of the property. And that's what we've been able to do to make that process smooth for us running forward whenever that's become necessary. But it's very simple, very easy. It only takes a few minutes to be able to handle those types of issues.
Love it. Yeah. What would you say is a big income hacker mistake you've seen people make?
So what I see a lot of times people do is, especially with flipping properties, is that they get really caught up in like the speed of the flips that they're doing. And what they'll do is they have like one or two LLCs, and then they will do all of their flips out of the same LLC. Which means that like every property that they've ever sold is a potential lawsuit into that LLC that they have. So like with the series LLC, the moment that we create a new child series in a trust for that property and we sell it, we never use that entity again. Remember, it didn't cost us anything in a trust. It didn't cost us anything to create or maintain it, right? For the trust or the child series, and we don't have to do anything with it, but we never use it again. So that way, like every property is clean. But when you have the same LLC and you're doing multiple deals through the same LLC, or you're doing multiple properties through the same LLC, then all of the liability of all the deals you've done in the past could affect what you're doing now. Because the deal that you did 2 years ago is filed against that LLC. Great. Now what happens? That LLC is now sued. What are all of the assets of that LLC? It's any cash that it has inside of its bank accounts and any properties that it owns. Now get a Liz Pendens put on title. So now you can't do anything with those properties until you get the underlying lawsuit resolved, which means, again, you lost leverage. Now you have to pay that person out because you can't do your next deal until you can get title cleared to be able to sell the asset. And if you're a flipper, that means your whole business shuts down while you're still accumulating interest for all the money that you just borrowed. So for me, I was like, that's crazy. If you're operating underneath that type of risk scenario, you have to change how your profile for risk is operating and using a series structure to be able to do that. The other way that I see people do it is that they do buy and holds and do the same thing. They're like, well, I'll just lump properties together inside an LLC, and that's great. That's the way that we used to do it 20 years ago, when the legal technology didn't exist for us to be able to use series LLCs and DSTs for this purpose. But it exists now, and it's kind of like you got like an old school like flip phone, you know, and I got an iPhone for the way that I'm doing business, right? Into it. And the difference in that one is astronomical, because as a buy and hold investor, same thing. Are you, anything that happens with one of your properties, now your entire portfolio that's inside of that LLC is now at risk. And depending upon the nature of that allegation or how severe the injury is, your insurance company likely won't cover you. And remember, insurance companies are really good at covering small claims, but anything that gets really expensive, their business model tells them they deny coverage, and then they fight it out in court later about whether they actually owed the coverage or not, right? Which leaves you having to sue your own insurance company. So the idea there is like, great, we want insurance because we want insurance to pay out on the small claims and take care of all the nuisance issues. But our asset protection is the way that we make sure that we take control of our own safety, even when the insurance company falls short.
Makes sense. Yeah, I love it. What about an income hacker success?
Yeah, we have these all the time, right? So we're all about income hacking, and in Royal Legal Solutions, what we're really focused on is income hacking to passive income, because we believe that it's the way you get there is you get your passive income to equal your total monthly expenses, and now that that's the definition of financial freedom in our model, right? So what we see is that the way that you get to the fastest route to financial freedom is in increasing your passive income is looking at what are the ways that you can continuously move up and to the right? And in terms of like, how are you growing your net worth, right? So we always want to be moving up in the right, which means we can't allow huge dips or huge things to happen, like major lawsuits or major losses, right? Because that can set us back years in terms of like what our timeline is like, right? So we say, great, we're not going to allow that to happen. And the way we're going to do that is by having a really good team that has a system and process by which is proven out over the years with hundreds and thousands of investors of saying, what are the best practices? How can I make sure that I'm following those? And that's how I can make sure that I'm on the right path to do it. And the other thing that comes into it as a hacker success to it is thinking about how much time you can actually put into making more money, right? So I think there's a misconception that happens that people think like, well, if I spend money on good tax and legal strategy and estate planning pieces as they come in, I've just spent that money and now it's gone, right? To it. When the reality is, good advice and the threshold that we should all have for professionals that we're hiring is that any professional I hire has to save me time or money, right? And if they can't clearly explain to me how they're going to save me time or money, then it's not a good deal. What we do is we say, great, we're going to save you money by managing your downside risk and ensuring that your downside risks are low or negligible, hopefully zero, in anything that you have going on. Then what we're also going to do is try to save you money on taxes, which we're very good at, using the most advanced tax strategies for real estate investors that are making anywhere between, typically around $50,000 a year up to some of our investors are making $3 million a year in active income. And what are the different strategies that you use at different levels? And some of them are appropriate at smaller levels and some are appropriate only at bigger levels, right? But that's why you use a professional to help you guide through, like, these are the ones you should be considering going with it. And the third is all of the time you get back from, one, not worrying about like, am I doing things correctly or not? Two, it's not having to research a bunch of junk to find out what are the things I need to be doing. You already have your trusted relationship that's worked with the investors that knows here's how you need to scale. And thirdly, it should be strategic. Like the quarterly strategic planning that we do with all of our clients, we meet with them for 30 minutes once a quarter to just check in on like, great, are you following all the best practices of what we know of like, how are you running your entity structure? How are you doing the strategic planning with your assets? Are you thinking through like the taxes strategically with knowing what your total ROI is really going to be? Are you using your retirement accounts, like your solo 401ks appropriately to leverage into building your net worth? Like all of those considerations that go into it. So that way, it doesn't have to be top of mind for you, Ryan, because we already know we're going to meet on it next quarter. So all you got to do is show up to the meeting and answer the questions. I say, great, we'll walk you through the process. Great. Now you leave that with a game plan of here's what I need to do in the next 3 months before my next meeting. Okay, cool. There we go. And that's how we figure like we can help people most effectively.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. Let me ask you this, Scott. If you had to start all over, you had your family, your knowledge, you lost everything, you had $3,000, what would you do?
I'd immediately start a marketing company. Yeah. Yeah. The deal is, I think a lot of people don't realize is that like a lot of people think like assets, right? Like real estate's on assets. And the reality of the situation is it's not the market, it's the marketing. It's not what can I walk down the street and find a deal? It's like, what's my deal flow, right? And that inherently relates to marketing. And what I know is that like, great, um, the more exposure I have into what information is coming to me that's valuable, right? Now I can do something with that in a way to make more money, right? Because I can aggregate better information better than other people. And that's the basics of marketing, right? It's like, how do you get access to and aggregate the information that's then useful, right? And if I were really going to start all over again, probably what I would do is just start a wholesaling company. It's like, great, I'll just aggregate what are good deals, do the deal analysis, and then just start farming them out to people that have capital until I can add on the next piece, which is great. Well, what's my access to capital? And if I have a good credit score, I have other people that are financial backers, and I can show them, hey, here's all my deal flow. If you guys gave me this money, look, I can give you this kind of awesome return with it, and we all make more money out of it. And then great, now I'm starting to acquire assets. So cool. Well, now let me start a fund, because I don't need to do one-off deals. I need to start a fund now to be able to buy all these assets, because that's what I originally started with. Any deals I don't want, I sell them off to other people. Any ones I do want, I sell to my fund. And so to stack in the business model like that would be the way that I would approach it. But that's just the way my mind works, right? That's how I built Royal Legal. That's how I built my own portfolio of assets. I mean, that's how I accomplished financial freedom within 6 years of real estate investing and had over 200 units, was just approaching things maybe a little bit different.
Love it.
How do you get to scale?
Yeah, let's switch gears. We've got a few minutes to wrap up here. Legacy. Let's talk about what's your legacy? What are you teaching the next generation?
Yeah, so for me, Royal Legal Solutions really is my legacy. I mean, it's the vehicle by which I already accomplished my own financial freedom before I started Royal Legal Solutions. The whole thing started because other people were asking me like, how did you put this together and how did it work? And then I was like, as I started to help a few people, I went on to the Bigger Pockets podcast, number 109 or something like that years ago. And that's where things like blew up, where I had 30, 40 phone calls a day were coming in for like, hey, can you help me? Can you help me? Can you help me? Into it, right? And what I realized is that, and my legacy into it is, how clearly can I create an organization and the systems and process and organization with the people that have the right training that can then take in anybody that comes into us. That's any of the average investors that come in, anybody that has like 0 to 6 properties. We have investors that have way more properties, but we specialize in like that 0 to 6 range and be like, great, here's the best practices to get you to like where you need to go to get you to that first 6 or that first 10, right? Because that's where we see the dials flip. And that says, great, usually in that first 5 to 10-ish property range is now where you start to see enough passive income coming in to offset people's expenses. And accomplishing financial freedom at that level. And the reason I and the team are so stoked on those specific metrics is because my belief is that the more people I can help get to financial freedom, the more impact I make on the world, because they'll have all the extra time and energy and space to go create better things, go create better families, go create better communities, go to work on things they care about, pay more attention to things that really matter to them in life. And that life fulfilling type of freedom, once you're not constrained by finances, is the most beautiful place to live. And it's the big dial mover that actually gets things to change.
Love it.
As you need to get people free out of the rat race of the money. That's the only way we can do it. And it all takes all of us working together to be able to create what this new paradigm is going to be around our relationship to money.
Awesome. Scott, what's your favorite book?
My favorite book right now is, I'd have to say, I'm actually like really into it right now. It's called The 4-Hour Body. It's written by Tim Ferriss, right? And the reason that I love it is because he does a great job of just breaking down some of like the health. I don't have a ton of time to focus on health. I'm really all in on everything that's going on with RLS, right? We have 30 employees, 2,000 clients. And so I need simple things about like, here's the differences I can make for my health, because I realized that as like a 36-year-old that I was like, wow, I might not be young and beautiful and healthy for forever. And I really am interested in that. So how can I do that? or at least do the best I can at it. And it's really helped me. I lost 40 pounds over the last year and a half, just implementing some of the basic things in that book that called to me that I was like, cool, I think I could do that. And I realized like, man, I don't have to do 40 things. There's one or two key levers in here that that resonate with me. That's like, I can do those. And that's what led to like massive weight loss, increase in fitness and health and vitality. My girlfriend's never been happier for a number of reasons, but like those are the great things that you can get when you expect to focus on health. So
that's awesome.
That's my good.
What about your favorite app?
Yeah, I think my calendar app. Yeah, I know it's a dorky thing to say, but for me, I only have one resource, which is time. And then where I direct my time is what my life gets, what I create with my life. So I manage a lot of everything through my calendar because I say it's not just my work time. It's how much do I need to give to myself for like self-care? Am I like journaling, meditating, doing sauna work, working out? How much time am I spending with like the people in my life that I care about? And if I use my calendar, I can look at it and say, oh, great. Hey, this is why your relationships suck. Over the last month, you've only spent 4 hours with friends. Yeah, no wonder. Cool. I can just look back at my calendar. So I manage everything in my calendar and I can look back at it and be like, hey, this thing, I have this pain point in my life. Let's look back at how much time and energy you're really putting into that area of your life.
Love it. Love it. So let me just tell everybody again, if you're interested in getting some of these ebooks, videos, and stuff that Scott's put together, check them out at rslpod.com/IH for Income Hacker. Scott, any final words you'd like to leave for our income hackers?
Yeah, what I'd like to say is, guys, go to rlspod.com /IH right now. And what it's going to do is it's going to take you to our asset protection vault. It's going to have 11 ebooks, over 4 hours of video content. It's all of our best stuff that I could give you guys. And just like, here's all of the info that you would need. It's thousands and thousands of dollars worth of info. And it's everything that I know pushed into all of those videos, such that you don't need me or anybody else in the world if you could really understand all of the information that is being communicated through those resources. Now, that's the full collection. Everything that we have, all the best stuff is at rlspod.com /IH. Now, you're going to have the opportunity when you go there to download to also interact with my team. And when you have that opportunity to interact with the team without paying us any money, what we're going to be able to do is then learn a little bit more about your situation through some quizzes and other information to gather from you. And then we're going to be able to make prescriptions of here's the specific content we've seen for people that are just like you, that have been most helpful for them from the over 2,000 investors that we've had. So then you can start getting those prescriptions of what to look at next. Before you even start meeting with a team member, before you swipe a credit card on doing anything, you're going to get all of the resources. You're going to get prescriptions for what are the resources that are tailored specifically to you, and such that by the time that you actually want to meet with a senior advisor here on our team, you're already going to know the 95% to the 97% of like, hey, this is exactly what I think I need coming into it. And then it's just going to be adding in the details of it. And if you do this, guys, if you go to rlspod.com /IH and download resources, interact with the team, I guarantee you will know more than any other attorney out there about real estate investing and what are the asset protection, the estate planning, and the tax implications that go with it. I guarantee it. You won't be able to find another attorney out there that you're going to talk to that'll know it. Outside some of my express colleagues, right, that are out here that you probably heard on like other podcasts. But anybody that's like a local attorney, you're going to know more than like, let's say 99.9% of the other attorneys.
That's amazing.
Caveat. That's all you got to do. rlspod.com /IH. Go there right now. Download the resources.
Fantastic. Well, Scott, thank you so much for being with us today. I've really enjoyed this episode. I know our listeners have as well. So go check out everything Scott is offering. Really appreciate you being with us. Make it a very profitable day, and we will see you next time. If you got value out of our discussion today, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It's a big help to me. Also, please share with a friend. Nothing is more valuable than creating financial friends who are like-minded. You can do that by inviting them to listen to the Income Hacker podcast. Bye for now, and make it a very profitable day.
Income Hacker may receive payment on the show from sponsors and guests in the form of books, giveaway items, discounts, or other remunerations. This show is for entertainment purposes only. And before making any financial moves, consult with a professional who can intimately understand your personal situation.